The jungle did not roar that morning. It whispered, a low, restless hum rolled beneath the canopy, carried by insects and the wet breath of the earth. The air itself seemed alive, thick enough to feel against the skin. Somewhere inside that green immensity, 6 travelers were already being swallowed whole, though none of them knew it yet. Lina Torres steadied her camera against the side of the boat, focusing on a shaft of light that cut through the mist like a blade. "Record everything," she said quietly. Her voice was calm, methodical, the voice of someone used to wilderness silence. Beside her, Damon Lee adjusted a GoPro on his shoulder, flashing a grin. "If we're lucky," he said. "This footage goes viral by Tuesday." It was June 4th, 2019, the start of their 4-day eco-expedition into the Verde Depths, a restricted zone of Costa Verde National Park. Their goal: document undocumented flora and prove the jungle's endangered core could survive if left untouched. It sounded noble. It was also reckless. Rachel and Tom Morgan, a pair of field biologists, sat hip to hip at the stern. Eli Parker, 25, clutched his drone case like treasure. Maya Cruz, the only local, steered with quiet confidence. She'd grown up near the border and knew the rhythms of the forest the way others knew city traffic lights. When Damon asked why travel past kilometer 42 was banned, she only said, "Because the land there remembers too much." They left the last ranger outpost by mid-morning. A radio check confirmed their beacon. From there, contact faded into static. The storm came faster than forecast. Thick gray swells rolled over the treetops. Thunder like the slow exhale of something enormous. By noon, the river widened into a maze of flooded channels. Lina filmed raindrops spattering the lens, her voice steady, visibility dropping to 40 meters. Spirits good. The timestamp read 12:47 p.m. The last verified moment anyone saw them alive, at 1:09 p.m. A garbled transmission reached the Ranger Tower. "Base. This is Torres team. Visibility 0. Switching to land route." Repeat. "Land route." Then silence. 3 hours later, another voice, Eli's, cut through static for 9 seconds. "It's moving." The rest dissolved in interference. When rescuers replayed the recording days later, they couldn't tell if the sound after his shout was thunder or something dragging through water. By dusk, rainfall had turned the lowlands to swamp. The beacon stopped at 6:42 p.m. Captain Ruiz logged the team as delayed but not missing. He wrote, "Weather severe. They'll bivouac overnight." But they did not. The next morning, a rescue helicopter traced the river to kilometer 48 beneath the canopy. Nothing moved except clouds of steam. At 8:15 a.m., a glint of orange appeared along a bend. The overturned raft, half submerged. Safety gear still latched. Inside were 3 backpacks, a purifier, and Lina Torres's camera bag. But no camera. The sand nearby was smooth, untouched, as if the rain had washed away even the memory of footsteps. Ruiz ordered a sweep of the banks. The jungle answered with insects and fog. "Feels wrong," one rescuer muttered, "like we're walking inside a lung." The air was thick with the scent of wet earth and something faintly metallic. By evening, teams returned empty-handed. No bodies, no tracks, not even scraps of fabric. The press caught wind within days. 6 tourists vanish in Costa Verde jungle. Authorities baffled. Families flew in from Seattle, Seoul, and Madrid, faces tight with disbelief. Interviews filled screens. Rachel's sister clutching a photo. Eli's father promising private helicopters. Damon's channel flooded with prayers and conspiracy theories. The comment section became its own fevered ecosystem. 2 weeks in, Captain Ruiz expanded the grid to include the forbidden Verde Depths. He didn't believe in curses, but he'd heard the locals' warnings. Valleys that breathed, vines that closed overnight. When Maya Cruz's relatives learned she was among the missing, they gathered in the church courtyard and burned sage, chanting the old phrase, "La Selva Guarda." The jungle keeps. Drones were deployed. Eli's own equipment, repurposed by the search team. From above, the forest looked like an endless green ocean, but at certain angles sections pulsed faintly, bending as if from a heartbeat below. One operator swore he saw ripples spreading outward, yet playback showed only leaves. On day 17, a bloodhound team from Bogota caught scent near the river fork, followed it inland, then stopped. They circled, whined, sat down. One handler said it felt like walking into vacuum. No scent forward, no scent back, he said, as if the trail ended midair. Ruiz wrote that night, 47 missing person cases. None like this. The jungle consumes evidence faster than decay. By month's end, funding ran out. The operation scaled back, then ceased. Officially, the 6 were missing, presumed dead. Unofficially, locals whispered the jungle had reclaimed them. That should have been the end, but sometimes endings hide underground, waiting for vines to pull them back to the surface. 3 years later, when satellite scans of Costa Verde's interior began mapping illegal mining zones, one technician noticed something odd. An oval of vegetation denser than the surrounding forest, uniform in color, perfectly circular, a patch of green so thick that light itself refused to pass through. It measured the size of a soccer field, and right in its center, faintly visible through overlapping canopies, was the ghostly outline of a shape that didn't belong in nature. A camp, or perhaps a monument, long since swallowed by vines. The jungle swallowed sound. Even helicopters vanished into it, blades chopping at mist that closed seconds later. Captain Ruiz stood at the open door, headset pressed to his ear, eyes scanning an endless quilt of green. Nothing, his co-pilot muttered. It's like they never existed. Below, teams waded through knee-high water. Boots sank into black mud that hissed with trapped gas. Every few yards, someone stopped to listen. The only reply was the drip of rain and the groan of howler monkeys. The search for 6 missing travelers had begun in optimism and was already turning to ritual. By day 3, volunteers from 3 provinces had joined, machetes, GPS units. Fading hope, the command post at kilometer 40 buzzed with generators and frustration. Ruiz pinned a map to a tree trunk, drawing circles in red grease pencil. We sweep here and here. Keep radios short. The storm season's not done with us. The weather obeyed no orders. Torrential rain turned trails to rivers and rivers to graveyards of trees. 2 drones crashed within a week, their feeds dissolving into static, magnetic interference. Technicians said. Ruiz wasn't convinced. He began marking where equipment died, a pattern forming like bruises across the terrain. Reporters arrived, chasing tragedy. They filmed relatives wading through mud, whispered about the curse of the Verde depths. One priest told a camera, "The forest has its own justice. Sometimes it hides what man should not disturb." The clip went viral. By week 2, food ran low. The budget doubled, then tripled. Still nothing. No footprints, no gear, no remains. What they did find were vines clinging to trunks in near-geometric patterns. Ruiz sliced one open. Milky sap oozed out, smelling faintly of rust. "Plants don't bleed metal," he muttered. Botanists from the university took samples, labeled them unknown species, warned of skin irritation. Within a day, several rescuers developed red welts. Fungal reaction, doctors said. Yet one soldier swore he'd seen the vine pulse. No one laughed. Nights grew uneasy. Radios hissed with half-formed voices, static that sounded almost like whispers. The men blamed exhaustion. Ruiz started keeping a written log instead of recordings. His handwriting grew tighter each day. June 20th, rain again. Dogs refuse Sector D14. Handler says ground breathes. June 22nd, dreamt of water flooding tents. River up 6 inches. June 23rd, pulled back teams. Air smells like copper. On June 24th, searcher Jorge Mendez vanished. He'd stepped 20 meters from camp to relieve himself. Minutes later, teammates found his flashlight still on, beam pointing upward into branches draped with vines. No tracks led away. just soft earth collapsing into itself. They called his name for hours. The forest gave nothing back. Ruiz ordered everyone to retreat until sunrise. In the morning, the vines where Mendez had stood were thicker, curling over the spot like new growth. They grow overnight, one ranger whispered. No one disagreed. By early July, the search had become a negotiation with superstition. Some locals refused to go farther, claiming they heard the lost travelers calling from the trees. Others said the voices belonged to Los Guardians Verdes, forest spirits guarding ancient ruins. Ruiz, though practical, avoided the word curse. He requested infrared sweeps. Results showed faint heat signatures scattered through the canopy. Ground teams found only birds nesting in hollow trunks. Analysts called the anomalies thermal ghosts, yet the readings kept returning, always near the same circular sector. On July 9th, Ruiz met with park officials. Funding was nearly gone. The media had turned cynical, calling the mission a search for ghosts. Ruiz argued for one final push. If we stop now, he said, we leave them to myths. He was granted 72 more hours. That night, 8 men entered the inner valley, Sector E9, where vines grew thickest. They carried flares and machetes. Rain hammered down like gravel. Sergeant Ibarra later wrote, every cut we made closed behind us. I thought it was exhaustion until my headlamp showed the stems twisting, very slow, but moving. At 1:17 a.m., radio contact broke. The next morning, helicopters found their gear scattered across an 8-meter clearing, already webbed in vines. Packs, helmets, machetes, all coated in a fine green film. None of the rescuers were there. Footprints ended halfway across the clearing. As if erased, the government suspended operations, officially. The disappearances of Mendez and the 8 men were blamed on a flash flood, unofficially. Ruiz knew better. He retired 2 months later, citing stress, and refused interviews. When the rain stopped that August, the jungle began healing over the scars left by the searchers. Helicopter pads sprouted ferns. Footpaths vanished under moss. Even the camp at kilometer 40 dissolved into greenery. Within a year, no sign remained that hundreds of people had once fought to uncover a secret the forest clearly wanted kept. In 2021, a handful of explorers tried entering the restricted zone. They never made it past checkpoints. One leaked image from their drone showed a patch of forest smoother than its surroundings, like a giant leaf turned upside down. The post gained millions of views before it vanished. Those who'd been part of the rescue tried to move on. Some succeeded, others didn't. Ruiz kept one thing from the mission, a compass that no longer pointed north. Its needle trembled constantly, spinning in slow circles whenever he held it near anything green. Years later, when he heard of a new LiDAR survey mapping Costa Verde's interior, Ruiz felt the old weight return. Because if those scanners looked deep enough, beyond the vines, beneath the canopy, they would find what he couldn't. And if they did, he thought grimly, the jungle might not forgive them for looking. For years after the disappearance, the jungle had gone silent again. Searchers were gone, rumors cold, and Costa Verde returned to the sound of rain and cicadas. The official file sat buried in an archive. Case closed. Environmental hazard. But the forest still kept its secret. In early 2023, a small team from the University of Lisbon arrived under a deforestation grant. Their LiDAR system was meant to scan canopy density, not reopen old mysteries. The lead scientist, Dr. Arlen Voss, only heard of the missing travelers on his first night in camp, when a ranger mentioned a ghost zone farther south, where compasses spun and drones dropped. Voss dismissed it as folklore until he saw the coordinates. They matched an anomaly his satellite team had flagged weeks earlier, a perfect oval of vegetation, brighter than the rest, its edges too symmetrical to be natural. 2 days later, they flew over it. From above, the rainforest's chaos broke into order. The patch below gleamed like wet jade. Vines knitted so tightly the surface reflected light as one continuous sheen. Like skin, a technician murmured. Voss ordered a ground survey against protocol. He wanted boots in that valley. The expedition began at dawn on April 6th, 7 people, 3 scientists, 2 rangers, a drone pilot, and Santiago Vega, a local guide, followed the overgrown trail once used by Captain Ruiz's team. The jungle seemed to recognize them. Humidity climbed to 98%. The light dimmed to green dusk. Even with GPS beacons, their coordinates drifted by meters each hour. By noon, Vega stopped. Feel that. The air ahead trembled like heat on asphalt. Insects avoided it. A faint vibration pulsed through their boots. Voss raised an anemometer. No wind. Seismic, he muttered. But doubt edged his voice. At 2:13 p.m., they reached the rim. A shallow depression dropping into a bowl of impossible green. Vines as thick as cables coiled across each other. Glistening wet. Every few seconds, ripples ran through them. As if stirred from beneath, Voss dictated notes. Unidentified vascular plants. Radial symmetry. Convergent root system. Unnatural. The rangers called it simpler. El Valle que Respira. The valley that breathes. They camped on higher ground that night. The forest refused to sleep. Leaves rustled in rhythms too precise for wind. From the basin below came dull, steady thuds, like a heartbeat under soil. Around the lantern glow. No one spoke of it. Near midnight, Vega pointed downslope. Lights. Tiny green flickers rippled beneath the vines, spiraling outward. Each time Voss spoke into his recorder, the glow pulsed brighter. They're reacting to sound, he whispered, half wonder, half fear. At dawn, the camp reeked faintly of copper. Dew clung like oil. The team prepared to descend. By 9 a.m., ropes were anchored to trees. The first ranger rappelled down, boots sliding on the slick surface. The vine mat flexed under weight, exhaling soft hisses of air. It's hollow underneath, he radioed. Halfway down, his boot sank 6 inches. The imprint sealed instantly. Voss noted the elasticity, though his hands shook. At 10:42 a.m., the group reached the floor. The scene defied logic. Vines woven into arches and corridors. Shafts of light cutting through metallic dust. In the center rose a mound draped in vegetation, 20 meters across. As they neared it, the air cooled. Vega muttered a prayer. Something metallic jutted from the vines. Voss brushed away growth and froze. Beneath lay a corroded aluminum frame, the tail section of a collapsible raft. Document this. More vines were cleared. A torn scrap of fabric appeared, faint letters visible through grime. Torres Expedition 2019. The team worked in silence. Every slice revealed hints of color, plastic buckles, a rusted tripod, a broken lens. Then Vega gasped. A dark bulge protruded from the roots. Voss tugged gently. A human boot, leather intact, fused to vine at the ankle. Stop cutting, he ordered, voice cracking. We need specialists. But the vines tightened, swallowing the boot again within minutes. As if the forest were correcting their mistake. That night no one slept. The lights below pulsed in rhythm, brightening whenever someone spoke. At dawn, Vega launched the drone. It buzzed over the basin, sensors spiking, temperature surges, compass chaos. Then steadied. The camera tilted down toward the central mound. Everyone froze. The vines had parted overnight, revealing an almost perfect spiral. Interwoven lines converging on a small hollow. From that hollow protruded a dull orange corner. A metal case. Voss exhaled. A camera. They retrieved it carefully, slicing around vines that held it like fingers. The housing was scratched but sealed. When connected to power, a faint red light blinked. Voss stared. If this belongs to them. It's been down there 4 years. The jungle around them fell utterly still. One ranger crossed himself. Voss slid the camera into a waterproof bag. We're leaving. As they climbed the ridge, a low tremor rolled beneath their feet. Long, deliberate. The vines shifted like muscles under skin, sealing the mound behind them. That evening, back at camp, Voss connected the camera to his tablet. The screen flickered, static. Then, faces, mud-streaked, terrified, bathed in green light. Lena Torres stood in the center, whispering to someone off camera. Behind her, the walls themselves seemed to move. Voss froze the frame. His hand trembled. "My God," he breathed. They were alive longer than anyone thought. Outside, the jungle exhaled, a single, deep rustling wave, like thousands of leaves drawing breath in unison. The footage ran for 27 minutes. Dr. Arlen Voss watched it in silence. The jungle outside his tent holding its breath, the screen glowed pale green on his face. Flickering as the recording jumped and distorted, static blurred the edges, but the sounds were unmistakable. Rain hammering, ragged breathing, someone whispering, "Keep filming." Lena Torres's voice. Voss leaned closer. The footage opened with the group huddled under a makeshift tarp, mud dripping from their clothes. "Day 3, Lena said, her voice shaking but steady. "We've lost the raft. The vines keep spreading across the bank. Damon thinks we can hike out if we cut through. But the air feels wrong, thick, like it's watching." The camera tilted. Damon appeared, machete in hand, hacking at the undergrowth behind him. The vines seemed to shift slightly, almost recoiling, then closing again once the blade passed. Voss paused, rewound, watched the movement twice. It wasn't an illusion. He scrubbed forward through jumpy clips. Rachel bandaging Tom's ankle, Eli setting up his drone, Maya warning them not to go deeper. Then came the sound again. A low vibration, too deep to be thunder. "Damon, you feel that?" "Maya, it's the ground." "Rachel, no. It's below it." Voss shivered. The next sequence was darker, lit only by the drone's night vision. The vines glowed faintly, pulsating with internal bioluminescence, forming patterns that looked almost deliberate. Eli pointed the drone toward a clearing. "Look," he whispered. "They're connected." The camera panned across a tangle of roots stretching like veins, converging toward the same spiral mound the team had found years later. Then, chaos. Damon shouting. The vines convulsed, tightening around a nearby tree. Something moved beneath the soil, a slow wave that cracked the ground open. The footage jolted, showing the group running, then cut to black. Voss exhaled shakily. What in God's name? He advanced to the next segment. This one was clearer, filmed days later. The group had built a crude shelter from branches. Everyone looked thinner, sunken-eyed. Damon sat against a log, muttering. "They're breathing," he said. "You can hear it if you stay quiet enough." Lena turned the camera toward him. "Damon, you need rest." He shook his head. "No, listen." The microphone picked up faint rhythmic thuds, like a giant heartbeat echoing through soil. Then a whisper, impossible to tell if human or something else, rippled across the soundscape. Voss's stomach tightened. The footage jumped again. The timestamp read day 19. Tom was gone. Rachel sobbed into her hands while Maya paced behind her. "He went for water," she said. "We heard him scream. When we got there, the vines had covered the spot. No blood, no body." Lena's voice was brittle. "They're not vines." Eli looked straight into the lens. "Then what are they?" The next few clips were short, fragmented. Damon trying to cut a path through the dense growth. Rachel recording their coordinates. Maya drawing strange symbols in the mud, old jungle sigils for protection. "It won't matter," she said. The land's awake. On day 25, only 3 remained, Lena, Eli, and Maya. They built a signal fire in a shallow pit, but the smoke refused to rise. The vines around the pit were coated in a thin sheen of moisture, glistening like sweat. "Lena, something's releasing gas. Oxygen's dropping. We're getting dizzy." "Eli, the plants are using our breath." Voss paused the video, rubbing his temples. Around him, the forest hummed faintly, as though listening. The final segment was grainy, almost unreadable. Lena was alone. Her voice was soft, trembling. "If anyone finds this, don't come here. The valley isn't alive. It's aware." Damon thought it was soil feeding the plants. But it's reversed. The plants feed the soil. We're the fertilizer. Voss froze. The camera panned upward one last time. The vines along the walls pulsed with faint light, moving in a slow, synchronized rhythm. A shape, perhaps human, hung half-absorbed in the growth. Then static overtook the image. The file ended there for a long time. No one spoke in the tent. Vega finally broke the silence. They were alive for weeks. Voss nodded, his throat tight, and the jungle kept them. By morning, word reached the research station. The footage spread through encrypted channels, drawing the attention of environmental authorities and military scientists. Within 48 hours, the valley was declared a restricted biological hazard zone. A containment unit arrived. Hazmat suits, sensors, flamethrowers. Voss protested. "You'll destroy it before we understand it." The commander's reply was simple. "Some things aren't meant to be studied." They descended into the basin at sunrise. From the ridge, Voss and Vega watched as plumes of fire rolled through the vines. The plants hissed and writhed, releasing clouds of metallic mist that glimmered like dust. For hours, the valley burned. Then the smoke settled. But when the team returned to collect samples, the clearing was gone. The mound had flattened itself, replaced by a new layer of green shoots already sprouting from the ash. Voss stared, whispering, "It's regenerating." Weeks later, the official report labeled the event bioreactive flora contamination. No word of the camera footage was released. Voss was asked to sign a confidentiality clause. He refused, then disappeared from the project. Vega returned home and never spoke of the expedition again. One of the rangers quit the service after claiming to hear whispers every time it rained. Months passed. The jungle healed, as it always did. Satellite imagery showed the same perfect oval of green, slightly larger now, and deep inside, LiDAR picked up faint geometric outlines that hadn't been there before. Voss wrote one final note in his field journal before vanishing completely. The Verde depths are not a place. They are a system. Every death, every root, every drop of blood feeds its rhythm. The jungle does not kill. It absorbs. And when it has learned enough, it will grow again. At dusk, locals say the valley hums, soft and slow, like breathing beneath the earth. And some nights, when the wind dies, faint flashes of green still rise from under the canopy, as if the jungle remembers. The jungle never releases what it takes. It only trades silence for memory. 3 months after the valley's containment, Costa Verde was closed to the public. No statements. No recovery, only a chain-link fence and a rumor that something beneath the canopy still moved. The government called it an environmental quarantine. The locals called it justice, but silence rarely lasts. In late 2023, an independent journalist named Clara Hale arrived in Costa Verde. She'd covered wars and mining scandals, but never a story that bled into myth. She carried leaked fragments of Voss's encrypted footage and one contact, Captain Ruiz, the retired search leader who'd sworn he'd never return. They met at a roadside cafe near the park border. Ruiz's hair was gray now, his eyes heavy with years of remembering. Clara placed a flash drive on the table. "This is what Voss saw," she said, "and what they buried." Ruiz pressed play. The footage flickered, vines glowing, faces screaming, Lena whispering. "The valley isn't alive. It's aware." He exhaled. "He should have destroyed that thing." Clara leaned forward. "Then you believe it?" Ruiz's gaze drifted toward the green horizon. "Believe it? I've heard it breathe." 2 weeks later, Clara crossed the restricted zone alone, drone kit, recorder, and Ruiz's compass in hand. The blockade was minimal. Guards half asleep beneath the rain. She moved at dawn, following the river trail where the Torres expedition had vanished. The forest had changed. The air was heavier, thick with metallic pollen. Her compass spun slowly. Trembling, still broken, she muttered. For 2 days she climbed deeper, recording everything. The jungle was quieter than before. No birds, no howlers, only the constant hiss of insects. On the 3rd morning, her boots sank into mud that rippled beneath her weight. At noon she reached the ridge. Below stretched the familiar oval basin, perfectly reformed, greener, glossier, almost liquid in the light. Clara launched her drone. As it hovered, the spirals appeared again, vines converging on the central mound. But this time, something new waited there. A charred drone bearing the university's insignia. Her headset crackled. Static filled her ears. Then a calm male voice whispered, "You shouldn't be here." She froze. "Who is this?" No reply. The feed glitched. When it cleared, the drone camera tilted downward on its own, focusing on the mound. The vines parted. Beneath them shimmered something translucent, almost organic, pulsing faintly with light. Her heart pounded. Then the signal died. Clara scrambled down the ridge. The closer she got, the thicker the air grew, humid, electric, alive. The vines vibrated under her hands, warm to the touch. At the mound's base, the soil trembled softly, steady, rhythmic, like breathing. She laid her palm against it. "You're not a place," she whispered. "You're something waiting." Her recorder picked up a hum, low, melodic, almost like singing. Then, from the vine wall beside her, a faint shape emerged, eyes, lips, and a face formed by shifting fibers, not flesh. An echo. The features were unmistakable. Lena Torres. The expression wasn't fear, it was peace. Clara stumbled back, shaking. The vines rustled softly, then settled, exhaling as if satisfied. She climbed until her lungs burned, not daring to look behind her. When she finally turned, the basin had gone still. That night, her drone feed returned. The footage showed the face forming, the vines glowing, and beneath them, hundreds of silhouettes intertwined. Sleeping, she uploaded a single frame to her encrypted blog. Caption: "The jungle remembers." 3 days later, rangers found her camp empty. Her bag lay open, battery still charged. Screen cracked. The official statement read, "Journalist presumed lost due to hazardous terrain." But her last 10-second clip surfaced online weeks later. No watermark, no metadata, just the mound pulsing faintly and a woman's voice saying, "It's not dead, it's dreaming." Months passed. Tourists returned to safer trails, unaware that deeper within, the vines were spreading, visible from orbit as faint green veins tracing riverbeds. Biologists called it regrowth. Environmentalists called it healing. Only Ruiz knew better. He lived quietly near San Ignacio, his old compass trembling on the desk. When rain hit the roof, the needle began to spin. He kept it in a drawer, but it never stopped moving. One morning, he received an unmarked envelope containing a photograph. A small clearing near the valley rim, half buried in roots, held a waterproof bag labeled "C. Hail" on the back. For words written in delicate script, "It knows we're watching." By year's end, LiDAR scans showed the anomaly spreading outward in rings, like ripples on water. The central patch no longer glowed brightest. Now the entire forest did, uniform and alive. Voss's field notes, leaked by an anonymous source, contained one final line. "The forest has learned our language. Now, when storms roll across Costa Verde, locals say the trees hum. Travelers on nearby highways swear they hear a deep vibration rising from the canopy, a breath too steady to be wind. Sometimes, beneath that hum, a whisper follows, soft, almost kind. They say it sounds like a woman's voice, repeating the same warning captured on Lena Torres's final tape. Don't come here." And then the forest falls quiet, as if listening to itself, because some stories don't end when the telling stops. They wait, buried beneath roots, patient and aware, and deep in the jungle's heart, something ancient still breathes.